My name is Lauren. He betrayed me with a smile, thinking I'd never find out. But I did, and instead of falling apart, I quietly took back everything he thought he owned. This isn't just a story about an affair. It's about how I turned heartbreak into power. And walked away without looking back. Please, before you hear how it all unraveled, take a second to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because stories like this, the ones that cut deep and rise strong, are just getting started. Welcome back to my family betrayal and revenge. The story. From the outside, my life looked like something out of a glossy home magazine. You know the kind: white picket fence, colonial-style house with navy shutters, and a flower bed that always seemed to bloom at just the right time. We lived on Hawthorne Street in Brookfield, Massachusetts. A quiet, tree-lined suburb where everyone knew your name, your kids' soccer schedules, and what you served at your last dinner party. My name is Lauren Delaney. Mother. Wife. Homemaker turned part-time interior consultant. I baked for every PTA event, decorated for every holiday, and made sure our son Nathan never missed a practice or a science project deadline. My husband Matt? He was Brookfield's golden boy. Owned a growing roofing company, coached Little League, and smiled just right for every photo. We were the couple everyone admired, but that's the thing about perfect pictures, they don't show the cracks underneath the frame. At first, it was little things. Matt stopped texting me during the day like he used to. He came home later, always with the same excuse: roofing season's picking up, babe. And when I kissed him hello, he flinched like I'd interrupted something more important than my affection. Still, I didn't question it. Because in Brookfield, you don't talk about marital issues. You host barbecues, you cheer from the sidelines, and you post curated photos with #BlessedFamily captions. But I started noticing the silences. We'd sit in the same room and feel miles apart. He used to tell me about every call, every project. Suddenly, his stories had gaps, and I filled them in with denial. Because I wanted to believe in the life we'd built. I had put my dreams aside to support his. I'd used my inheritance to help him launch Delaney Roofing, believing we were investing in our future. Still, the alarm bells were soft, not screaming. Until I overheard him one night, on the phone in the garage. I wasn't eavesdropping. I'd gone out to grab a charger and heard his voice drop low, almost tender. Yeah. No, she has no clue. That was all he said. Just a whisper. But it wrapped around my heart like ice. I backed away before he saw me, smiling as I returned to the kitchen like I hadn't heard a thing. Because if I acknowledged it, it would become real. In that moment, something inside me shifted. I didn't say a word, not even when he walked in and kissed my cheek like nothing had happened. But for the first time, I looked at our perfect suburban life not with pride, but with suspicion, because sometimes the most beautiful houses hide the darkest secrets, and I was about to find out just how far mine went, to the rest of the world. We were the Delaneys, Brookfield's golden family, but behind closed doors? We were already breaking. It was a Tuesday, cold, gray, and soaked in that kind of Massachusetts rain that seeps into your bones and makes everything feel heavier than it should. I had just come back from Market Basket, arms full of groceries, hair clinging to my forehead, soaked through my jacket. Nathan was at school, the house was quiet, and Matt's truck was in the driveway, even though he was supposed to be on a job site in Leicester. That should have been my first red flag. But I brushed it off. Maybe he came home for lunch. Maybe the job got postponed. Maybe I walked into the kitchen and heard the shower running upstairs. Matt had left his phone on the counter, unlocked. That never happened. He was obsessive about locking his phone, even when going into the other room. But there it was, screen glowing, as if inviting me to look. I didn't mean to. Truly, I didn't. But something in my gut, something primal, told me not to ignore it this time. The screen lit up with a message: can't stop thinking about last night. Face blowing a kissy K. I stared at it. Blinked. My hands started to tremble. My brain tried to rationalize, maybe it was a joke. A wrong number? I tapped the message. And what I saw crushed the breath out of me. Texts. Dozens of them. Miss your arms around me. You always know how to make me feel good. When are you telling her? Photos. Intimate ones. Hotel rooms I didn't recognize. Poses I hadn't seen in years. Her name was Kelsey Baird, the new admin I'd met once at the company holiday party. She barely made eye contact with me, called me ma'am, and laughed too hard at Matt's stories. I had thought she was harmless. Young. Naive. I was wrong. I dropped the phone back on the counter just as I heard the water shut off. My heart thundered in my ears, my breath caught in my throat, but I moved automatically, putting away groceries like everything was fine. Like I hadn't just witnessed the collapse of my life in a series of emoji-laced texts, Matt walked into the kitchen a few minutes later, towels slung low, still damp, grinning like the man I once loved. Hey babe, you're home early, he said, opening the fridge. Grab Nathan, okay? I smiled. Not yet. Just beat the rain. He kissed my forehead. Just like always. But everything was different, because in that moment, the lie was no longer something I feared. It was something I could see, touch, or read. And knowing the truth didn't break me the way I expected. No, something colder, steadier settled into my chest. It was the beginning of the end, and quietly, while he poured himself a glass of juice, I began planning my escape, because when someone shows you who they really are, you don't look away, you look deeper. Her name kept echoing in my mind, Kelsey Baird. It had been there in the messages, written so casually, like a woman who'd gotten comfortable in the dark corners of my life. I remembered meeting her once, barely. She was introduced at Matt's office holiday party last December. All glittery eyeliner and nervous laughter. She couldn't have been more than 27, with fake blonde waves and a laugh that wrapped around Matt a little too easily. I hadn't given it much thought back then. Just another young hire. Another eager assistant trying to prove herself. But now, every smile, every moment she'd looked past me to hang on Matt's words, felt different. Deliberate. I didn't ask Matt about her. Not yet. Instead, I did what women have done for centuries when everything starts to unravel. I got quiet, and I started watching. Over the next week, I took note of everything. The way he turned his phone face down whenever I walked into a room. How he started going to early meetings on Saturdays and coming home with shirts that didn't quite match the sweat he claimed. His cologne lingered too long, and his excuses were starting to trip over each other. Kelsey's name appeared on his calendar, masked as admin debrief or office supply run. I even found a receipt from a boutique hotel in Worcester tucked into the back of his glove compartment, charged to his business card, dated 3 Tuesdays ago. The same day he came home late and blamed a tire blowout on Route 20, I traced her online. Her Facebook was carefully curated, filled with mirror selfies, iced coffee, and cryptic captions like "Know your worth, even if he doesn't." I stared at her profile photo for too long, memorizing the slight tilt of her smile, the confidence of someone who thought she was winning a game no one told me I was playing. But I didn't cry. The strange thing was, I expected to. I thought I'd crumble in the shower, sob into my pillow, scream into the night. But instead, I felt still. Cold. Controlled, because this time, the pain didn't drown me, it sharpened me. I pulled out a journal and began writing everything down. Dates. Names. Locations. Patterns. Every late night, every discrepancy, every lie I had accepted as truth. I wasn't just a betrayed wife anymore, I was a woman building her case, and while Matt kissed me goodbye each morning and texted me from the office, I smiled and packed his lunch with extra care. I washed his clothes. I helped Nathan with homework and kept up the image. Because revenge, I realized, isn't rage. It's restraint. Her name was Kelsey. But soon, it wouldn't matter who she was. Because the moment I stepped out of the lie I'd been living, I stopped being the woman he thought he could betray without consequence, and I started becoming the woman he'd regret losing. They say the scariest storms are the silent ones, the ones that roll in slowly, darkening the sky without a single crack of thunder. That was me. A storm gathering in silence. After I learned everything about Kelsey, about the lies, I didn't scream. I didn't throw his clothes onto the front lawn. I didn't confront him with printouts or accusations. I smiled. I kissed him goodnight, just like always. I made dinner, folded laundry, played the part. But every moment I was pretending, I was also preparing. The first thing I did was call Rachel Morin, a friend from college who now worked as a divorce attorney in Boston. I didn't tell her everything, just enough. I asked questions that sounded hypothetical but weren't. She gave me advice, firm and sharp: check accounts, secure documents, don't tip him off. So I did just that. While Matt texted Kelsey from the shower, I logged into our joint accounts. I reviewed years of statements, looking for where the money had gone, what he spent on her, what he took from me. I found hotel charges, dinner dates disguised as client meals. Even a jewelry purchase billed to the business. I copied everything. Saved it on a flash drive I hid in my sewing kit. He'd never go near it. The next step was the house. The deed was in both our names, but the mortgage had always been paid from an account tied to my inheritance, the same inheritance I used to help him start Delaney Roofing Restoration. A fact he always brushed off like it didn't matter. Now, it mattered. With Rachel's help, I began shifting things. Quietly. Legally. I opened a new account in my name only and redirected my income. I changed the passwords to anything tied to my financial life. I secured Nathan's savings, moved paperwork out of the office and into a lockbox I stored at my sister's in Worcester. I was reclaiming what was mine. At night, I lay beside Matt and pretended to sleep, listening to him breathe as he dreamed of someone else. But I didn't hate him, not yet. What I felt was deeper than hate. It was resolve. The realization that I had given everything to a man who thought I was too soft to fight back. He'd underestimated me. That was his first mistake. And I didn't tell a soul. Not my sister. Not my closest friend. Because revenge doesn't thrive in noise, it thrives in patience. In precision. In preparation, Brookfield still saw us as the golden couple. The Delaneys. Picture perfect. But the cracks were widening behind our white picket fence. And the moment would come when the truth could no longer hide behind Matt's rehearsed smile. He didn't know it yet, but his perfect little world was already crumbling, piece by calculated piece. The storm had started. And I was its quiet eye. Before the betrayal, before Kelsey, before all of it, there was just us, Matt and me, sitting at a scratched-up diner booth in Worcester, dreaming like we were invincible. He wanted to start his own roofing company, tired of working under people who never saw his worth. And I believed in him. I just need a break, Lore, he'd said, fingers wrapped around a mug of burnt coffee. One shot to prove I can build something real. I'd just received my inheritance, a portion of my father's estate that he had quietly saved over a lifetime of blue-collar grit and stubborn Massachusetts pride. He always said, "Don't let anyone make decisions for you if they didn't help earn what's in your hands." I heard his voice as I wrote the first check to fund Delaney Roofing Restoration. Matt promised to pay it back. I never asked him to. I thought we were building a future together. What I didn't realize then was that I never put his name on anything. The business account? Opened in my name because Matt's credit was shaky at the time. The house on Hawthorne Street? Purchased under my credit, my down payment. Even our health insurance ran through a plan I picked when I worked part-time with a staging firm in Boston. At the time, it didn't seem significant. We were a team. What was mine was his. But now? That paperwork, those small details, had become my shield. As I sat in my home office, a folder open on my lap, I saw everything clearly for the first time. Tax filings. Mortgage statements. Business registration forms. All of it pointed back to me. My name. My signature. My decisions, and with every document I reviewed, every line that proved I had been the foundation of Matt's so-called success, a strange peace settled over me, because while he'd been building lies with another woman, I'd unknowingly been building a fortress. One he had no keys to. I remembered the day we signed the business papers. Matt didn't even read them. He was too excited, too ready to get to work. I remembered sliding the pen across the table to him, saying, "Just sign the parts that need you." Most of it didn't. He never questioned it. Now I was thankful. Because that blind trust, his arrogance even, was the very thing that would undo him. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming what was mine. My security. My dignity. My son's future. Matt had built a company using my money, slept under a roof my father helped me secure, and now thought he could throw it all away for a fling with someone who didn't even know where we kept the spare keys. But he was about to learn the truth. He might have fooled me once, but the foundation he stood on, it was never his to begin with. I had rehearsed it in my head 1,000 times. What I'd say. How I'd stand. Whether I'd slap him across the face or simply slide the envelope across the table with a smirk. But when the moment came, I felt nothing. Just calm. Cold, precise calm. I waited until I knew Matt would be at Kelsey's apartment, an overpriced 2-bedroom in a renovated mill building in downtown Worcester, complete with exposed brick and bad taste. I'd tracked his patterns, watched his routines. Tuesdays and Thursdays. Always after work. Always between 6 and 9 p.m., I pulled up around 7:15. The building looked sterile, try-hard chic, like someone desperate to seem more grown-up than they really were. I climbed the stairs, heart steady, and knocked on Unit 3C. Kelsey answered the door. She wore a silk robe, cheap but trying to look expensive, and her mascara was already slightly smudged, like she'd been crying before I even got there. Maybe her guilt finally started to set in. Or maybe she just sensed the storm about to hit. "Hi," I said, like I was greeting an old neighbor. "Is Matt here?" Her mouth fell open, and in the background, I heard him say, "Who is it?" She turned. Hesitating. I stepped past her without waiting for permission. Matt stood in the middle of the living room, barefoot, t-shirt inside out. His face went white the second he saw me. "Lauren." He started, walking toward me. I held up my hand and pulled the thick manila envelope from my bag. "No need for theatrics. These are for you." His brow furrowed, confused. Then his eyes scanned the bolded words on the top of the papers. "Petition for divorce." He stammered, "Wait, can we talk? You don't have to do this here." I looked him dead in the eye. "This is exactly where I need to do this." Kelsey hovered near the kitchen island, arms crossed, trying to look small. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I cut her off. "You're not that important." Her eyes welled up. Matt reached for me, desperate now. "Lauren, please. Let's talk. This doesn't have to be ugly." I smiled. "Matt, it's already done. The accounts have been moved. The house is mine. The business, well, you'll be hearing from my lawyer about that too." He blinked, stunned. "You wouldn't." I already did. The silence in that room was delicious. Kelsey was crying now, realizing this wasn't some midlife fantasy. This was real life. Consequences. And Matt looked like a man watching his entire world fall apart, one signature at a time. I turned to leave. "Lauren." He whispered behind me. I paused at the door. "You thought I'd fall apart. But I'm not the woman you married anymore. I'm the woman who survived her own husband." And with that, I walked out, dignity intact. Power reclaimed. And the game, already won. It didn't take long after the papers were signed for Matt's perfect little empire to implode. Delaney Roofing Restoration limped along for a few weeks after I pulled my funding. But without me managing the accounts, balancing the books, and chasing overdue invoices, it spiraled fast. Clients started calling me directly. Apparently, I'd built more of the relationships than he had. They trusted me. He was just the name on the truck. Within 2 months, The business defaulted on its biggest vendor contract. Equipment was repossessed. Jobs were cancelled. His crew, most of whom had been loyal to me, walked off the job. One by one, his support beams collapsed, until all that remained was Matt Delaney and a stack of unpaid bills. Kelsey? She lasted 3 more weeks. Apparently, she hadn't signed up for life with a disgraced man who couldn't afford brunch, let alone her rent. When the money dried up and the heat in her apartment was turned off for a week straight, she packed up her matching suitcases and went back to her sister's in Connecticut. No dramatic goodbye. No loyalty. Just a text, "This isn't what I thought it'd be. I need space." Poetic, really. Back in Brookfield, the whispers started. The same neighbors who once clinked wine glasses with us at block parties now watched him from behind curtains. I'd hear them on my morning walk. He sold his truck. I heard he's staying in someone's basement in Framingham. Such a shame, he had everything. I didn't correct them. I let the stories grow. One day, I saw his name pop up in a local Facebook group, someone asking if he still did roofing work. A comment thread followed, "He doesn't return calls. Unreliable. He ruined my gutters." I didn't reply, but I watched it unfold with quiet satisfaction. Last I heard, he was renting the basement of an old friend's house in Framingham. No windows. Leaky pipes. He'd picked up a night shift job at a shipping warehouse, manual labor for just above minimum wage. A far cry from the man who used to host poker nights in our finished basement, boasting about margins and profits like he was the king of Brookfield. I don't know if he tells people what happened. If he admits that he lost everything because he couldn't keep his vows, or his ego, in check. But I do know this, he doesn't look me in the eye anymore. The few times I've run into him, once at a gas station, once near the courthouse, he looked smaller. Not physically. Just less. Like a man haunted by choices that seemed harmless in the moment, choices that cost him everything. And me? I never had to raise my voice. Never had to destroy him. I just stepped away, and the truth, he did the rest all on his own. In the months after the divorce, the silence in the house felt different. It wasn't empty, it was peaceful. No more late-night lies. No more pretending. Just me, Nathan. And the sound of healing settling into the walls like fresh paint. For the first time in years, I had space to breathe. I didn't want to disappear into bitterness. I had too much life left to live. So I took all the pain, all the betrayal, and poured it into something that was mine. Not shared, not borrowed, not for anyone else, just mine. I launched Redefined Spaces, a home staging and interior styling company based right here in Brookfield. What started with a few neighbors and realtor friends snowballed into real momentum. Turns out, I had a knack for seeing potential in overlooked places, maybe because I knew what it felt like to be underestimated myself. I still remember my first big job, a colonial on Millstone Lane. The couple was struggling to sell it. I walked through, took notes, moved some furniture, changed the light fixtures, added warmth where there had only been function. Within 2 weeks, it sold for above asking. Word spread fast after that. By summer, I was staging 3 homes a week, juggling client calls. And still making it to Nathan's soccer games. I was building something solid, something honest. And every time I saw my company's logo printed on the side of my car, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, pride. Nathan was thriving, too. He was quieter after the divorce, unsure at first. But kids are sharper than we give them credit for. He saw everything. And slowly, he began to understand that peace is better than pretense. That a smaller home filled with truth is better than a big one built on lies. One night, as I tucked him in, he looked up at me and said, "You're happier now." It stopped me cold. I smiled. "Yeah, buddy. I think I am." There were still hard days, lonely nights. Financial stress, the awkward moments at school events when people didn't know whether to smile or offer pity. But I didn't care anymore. I walked in with my head high and my business card in my purse. I wasn't just Matt's wife or the woman who got left. I was Lauren Delaney, business owner, mother, survivor, no more dimming my light to keep someone else comfortable. No more waiting to be chosen. I chose me. I launched Redefined Spaces, a home staging and interior styling company based right here in Brookfield. What started with a few neighbors and realtor friends snowballed into real momentum. Turns out, I had a knack for seeing potential in overlooked places, maybe because I knew what it felt like to be underestimated myself. I still remember my first big job, a colonial on Millstone Lane. The couple was struggling to sell it. I walked through, took notes, moved some furniture, changed the light fixtures, added warmth where there had only been function. Within 2 weeks, it sold for above asking. Word spread fast after that. By summer, I was staging 3 homes a week, juggling client calls. And still making it to Nathan's soccer games. I was building something solid, something honest. And every time I saw my company's logo printed on the side of my car, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, pride. Nathan was thriving, too. He was quieter after the divorce, unsure at first. But kids are sharper than we give them credit for. He saw everything. And slowly, he began to understand that peace is better than pretense. That a smaller home filled with truth is better than a big one built on lies. One night, as I tucked him in, he looked up at me and said, "You're happier now." It stopped me cold. I smiled. "Yeah, buddy. I think I am." There were still hard days, lonely nights. Financial stress, the awkward moments at school events when people didn't know whether to smile or offer pity. But I didn't care anymore. I walked in with my head high and my business card in my purse. I wasn't just Matt's wife or the woman who got left. I was Lauren Delaney, business owner, mother, survivor, no more dimming my light to keep someone else comfortable. No more waiting to be chosen. I chose me. Framed photos of the 2 of us on the mantle, smiles genuine, laughter real. Redefined Spaces had grown into a thriving business. I had a small team, loyal clients, and even dreams of opening a second office in Cape Cod. I wasn't surviving anymore. I was living, and I owed that to the strength I found after Matt left, not before. I didn't reply to his message. Not out of cruelty, but out of clarity. Helping him wouldn't undo the past. It wouldn't heal what he broke. And it wouldn't honor the woman I had fought so hard to become, because forgiveness doesn't always mean reconnection. And compassion doesn't require a return to pain. I deleted the message, no rage. No tears. Just a deep, quiet peace. That night, Nathan asked if we could order pizza and watch a movie. I smiled, grateful for this ordinary, beautiful life. "Sure, buddy. You pick the movie." As the credits rolled, I looked at my son and realized something important. I didn't need revenge to win. I didn't need Matt's apology. I had closure, not because of what he said, but because of what I chose, and I chose me. Every single time. That's not just survival, that's freedom, that's peace over pity. If this story moved you, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more real-life stories of strength, betrayal, and redemption. Comment below. What would you have done in Lauren's shoes? Hit the notification bell so you never miss a twist-filled tale that hits close to home, because sometimes, the quietest revenge is becoming everything they said you couldn't be.